Hey guys, before we start this episode, I wanted to talk to you about Type 1 lifting. So, Type 1 lifting is a clothing line that proceeds of the shirts and tanks and everything else goes to the Children's Diabetes Foundation. So, this all came about with me and seeing a 5-year-old girl in the emergency department that had new onset of diabetes. So, just take a look at the website. It's www.type1lifting.com. So just check it out. If you don't buy anything, that's perfectly fine. I would just like for you just to take a look and just see what we have. So, like I said before, www.type1lifting.com. And guys, I hope you enjoy the show. All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Type 1 Lifting podcast. I have a CrossFit athlete, Brandon Luckett. How's everything going?
Everything's been going pretty well, for the most part, as well as I can hope for. So very blessed.
Yeah. So I want to kind of talk about, this is your last year of doing CrossFit. So you're going into, was it medical physicist? You're a medical physicist, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. So
Yes.
what made you get involved in that?
Yeah. So my mom is an eye surgeon. My dad's a medical physicist. Coming out of high school, didn't quite know what route I wanted to go with. But the family knew the medical field, obviously. Didn't know much else outside of that, really. I didn't have close contact with lawyers or, bankers or financiers or, entrepreneurs, really. But, the whole family's pretty medically inclined, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I remember sitting outside my dad's office while, he's plugging away at work in his office. And I was like, Dad, I don't know what I want to do with the rest of my life, for work. I don't think med school's the route for me. I don't think, not going to follow in mom's footsteps and be an MD. And so, he and I got to talking. He started his own business. He's an entrepreneur. He loved his lifestyle. And I thought it was great the way he was able to, do a large portion of the work of, Mr. Mom, so to speak. He brought us to school, took us home from school. On the weekends we were riding around with him. And then even whenever we were out of school, he was able to be really flexible with his work and take us around, and he made a good living doing it. And so I was like, maybe I can do that. And so we kind of started putting the puzzle pieces together of what it would take. And it was going to require a bachelor's of science in pure physics, a graduate degree in medical physics, and then a residency in medical physics. So we put the plan together, and I started physics at LSU to get my bachelor's, and I never deviated from that end sight, that end goal. And so 8 years later, I'll be working with my dad October 1st full time.
Very cool. So how long is residency? Because I know, like, with other doctors, like, surgeons, they're like 6 years,
Mm-hmm.
4 years. What is
Yes.
it for you?
Yeah, so medical physics, they call it a residency, and that's one of the things I like least about the path I have. It is a weird thing to like least, but everyone's like, you're a resident. What kind of doctor are you going to be? I'm actually not a doctor. I got a master's degree, so I got to have a postgraduate degree, but then my residency is only 2 years. There's very little patient-to-patient contact, and they call it a residency because it's a clinical training, similar format to a physician's residency, but we don't do any patient treatment. We don't prescribe anything. We're not MDs. We're physicists. We work with machines. We work with radiation. There's some patient work that we do, especially if you're a therapy physicist or a nuclear medicine physicist, which I'm nuclear medicine and diagnostic imaging. And diagnostic imaging probably has the least amount of patient contact of the three subfields of medical physics. And so, going back to answer your actual question, our residency is only 2 years long. Some are 3 years if you're getting, doubly board certified, which mine will drag out 3 months extra so that I can get onto the path of becoming doubly board certified in diagnostic imaging and nuclear medicine. So I finished my residency on June 30th, but I'll be here through October studying nuclear medicine. So, but anyway, that's a long answer to a short question.
Yeah. So, obviously you're measuring the radiation rates and stuff like that. So is it like kind of like, do you just study like how many x-rays the machine takes, or like what's, because I'm relatively new to like the whole medical physicist stuff.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of different machines used in medical treatment or diagnosis that use radiation, right? If you got cancer, you're trying to ablate a tumor, you're shooting it with gamma radiation, which is just photons, or protons, which is positively charged particles, and they react totally different inside of tissue biologically. But on the flip side of that, diagnostic imaging, you're using photons at a completely different energy range to create images. So x-rays, dental x-rays, orthopedic x-rays, those are all shooting photons through your body. Even a CT, which is just a bunch of different x-rays that are all computed into a 3D image. MRI uses magnetic radiation. Ultrasound uses sound wave radiation. So there's a lot of different radiation going on in medical treatment. And I study the x-rays, the sound waves, and the magnetic waves of diagnostic imaging. And so all of those are kind of, because there are inherent risk factors with different types of radiation, they're all regulated by the state or federal government to ensure the safety of anyone going in to get treatment. You don't want to go in and get a head scan and 3 months later you got no hair and a ring around your head because the CT dose is too high, which has happened. You don't want to go in and get x-rays regularly, or for example, mammography. Women start getting mammography scans regularly at a certain age, and you don't want to go in regularly and get overdosed every time you go in, and then you're putting yourself at increased risk for breast cancer because you've gotten too much dose. So there's a lot of safety issues or safety concerns that we are very strict on. And the state and federal government regulate those things. And we also try to ensure, of course, the quality of imaging, because you don't want to go get even a small amount of radiation and then a doctor can't look at an image because it's poor quality. So there's a lot that goes into that. It's a very fine, not really a fine balance. There's some leeway, but we're very strict with it because we want the absolute optimum care for the patient. Very safe, low dose treatment with very good quality imaging. And as technology is getting better and better, you're getting much lower dose, way better quality images. So that's our field. And then there's other things that come into it in terms of architecture, where you do calculations and see how much lead's in a wall to make sure that x-rays aren't getting outside of the room. And then protocol optimization to ensure to improve image quality while keeping that dose down, patient dose calculations, things like that come out kind of like the perimeter of our study, but come into the field every now and then.
Very cool. So will you be stationed at a hospital at all, or just kind of like free reign of going to certain areas and just doing tests?
Yeah, so it depends. So some people will go to a single hospital, like a huge clinic that have enough work to keep them full time, pay them salary and benefits and everything, and they'll be stationed just at one clinic. My dad got into consulting 20-something years ago, so he started contracting out to little clinics that didn't want to hire a full-time physicist. Didn't need to hire a full-time physicist because they have one CT, one X-ray, one MRI, and that's it. And that's 3 days of work for a physicist. So he started contracting out to different hospitals, and he works through 15 different cities in 2 states with consulting.
Very cool, very cool. So you're obviously going to be joining your father with it. So what is
yes,
the
sir.
whole process with you joining the team?
There's a bunch of different things that we've kind of had to mesh out over the past few months as he's been preparing for me to come in. And part of that was figuring out, because he was a single proprietorship, and he's trying to figure out how to get me into the company the most efficient way. So it'll end up being I'll buy into the company with him, and I'll take half the work and have my region and course cover whatever he needs me to cover. I'll do all the long traveling so that he doesn't have to do that anymore. He's been traveling far too long and working way too hard, building his practice so that I could come in. But it's been a huge puzzle piece for him to try to put together and see what's the best way for me to get in. And I think we're kind of finally figuring out what that'll look like. But as far as my workload, I'm taking half of all of the work, and I wouldn't mind taking more than that if he allowed me to just take more off his plate, because I've seen him bust his butt for too long now.
Mm-hmm. No, I hear you. You want him kind of ease into retirement, kind of.
Yeah, he needs a break.
Yeah.
Both my parents need a break.
Yeah, I hear you. My dad worked the underground electrical work for all of the city of Boston, and he was the only guy that knew how to do it. And so they ran him ragged. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So it was at the point where they're like, okay, you have to retire. Like, you can't work anymore. So it worked so hard. So it was like 14-hour shifts and everything. It was insane.
All my dad's work's been self-induced.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, very cool. Well, I'm glad you're going into that route. That's pretty cool. So I've never even heard of anybody getting into that space before. Never even hearing of a medical physicist before. So, but
it's a small field.
Yeah, I can imagine. So now I want to kind of get into the CrossFit space. So when did you even get involved with CrossFit?
Right after high school. I wrestled through high school, and like that was my passion, is what I thought about all the time. Knew I didn't want to do it in college though, especially, going into what I didn't know. This was before I even knew what I'd do, but I knew I wanted to do something difficult and challenging. Wanted to put all my focus on the school, because in high school I didn't, and I felt that if I tried to focus on a sport in college or whatever it might be, I would detract too far away from trying to set myself up for a different future. But as it turns out, I do whatever my brother does, and he started doing CrossFit while he was an undergrad with his roommate. As I graduated, he's like, "Hey man, come try this workout." He tried to work out, then went to the gym with him, then did like a couple local competitions. And like my first year of doing CrossFit, realized I was way too small, put on some weight, and got to be on like a regionals team, and then a few years on a regionals team, and kind of started getting a little more competitive. Made it as an individual to regionals. The following year I qualified for the game. So I started in 2013.
Yeah. So when did you realize you're starting getting good? When you actually started beating your brother?
I don't even remember when I started being. He's always been stronger than me. Even now, he's stronger than I am. Like the dude was built like an ox. But I had a better engine than him. So when I could finally start moving decent weight, like in a Metcon, and those weren't just like totally wiping me out, I started being able to get competitive with him, and eventually able to start beating him in, the open, things like that. Until he ended up tearing his pec in 2018 and no longer did CrossFit. But after, I think I realized I got decent at CrossFit in like 2016, 3 years after starting.
Very cool. And then you like you said before, you joined a team. So did you get picked, or were you like, "Hey guys, let's like get a team going," or what was the process with that?
Yeah, that was back whenever in the they saw the affiliate cup.
Yep.
And so it was just our gym had 3 men and 3 women who were good enough through the open to qualify for regionals, and I was one of those 3 men. And we did it. I was on the team 2 years, and then the first year I qualified for individuals. They still had 3 men and women who were good enough to qualify for regionals. And so we had myself and their team go, and my brother was on that team. Now that was the last year he was able to compete. But so there was no like putting a team together. We just had it,
Very cool, very cool. And then you went individual, and then what was your experience through like being an individual instead of like working with a team?
Yeah, I've put it this way because I did compete on team in 2019. Team is way more fun and exciting because like that excitement of a win or like a PR or like a really good event is magnified by the number of people on your team because you're sharing that, Because it's not only what you did to make the team succeed. It's the other 5 or other 3 people on your team that also did their job. You're just like stoked for them. It's like the excitement's really high.
Yeah.
But in the individual sport, there's no one to celebrate with on the floor besides like your internal consciousness. And so the pride is larger individually because you did a lot of that work, you know, and there's no one else to blame but yourself when it goes bad. And so, you know, it hurts when it goes bad, but it's prideful. Like there's a larger sense of pride whenever you do well, but the excitement is far less, I think.
Yeah. And plus on teams, you get longer breaks.
Yeah. Yeah. But that doesn't make it easier, you know?
No.
It's like sometimes that makes it worse because your buddy's going a lot faster than you want him to go. You're like, I need a longer break, you know?
Yep.
So.
Very cool. Very cool. So I know you went individual. You went Misfit for a little while. What was your thought going in Misfit?
Misfit was all. That's how I got started. Like, so if I back up into 2017, I did an internship at MD Anderson during the summer, which is in Houston. Did an internship for medical physics. Wound up at Alexis Johnson's gym, who was training Misfit. And I wasn't even doing Misfit at the time, but I walked in the gym and like, yeah, Alexis she just qualified for the games. I bet she'd love to have someone to train with. I was like, I'll do whatever she's doing, you know? And I was just dusted by her like every single day. And I was like, dang, like she's really good. This is before I ever qualified for regionals as an individual. I'd been on a team and that was it. And I learned a lot that summer about how hard she was able to like push herself and how hard like those people at that top level were able to just like gut through a Metcon or just, you know, deal with volume. And so that was my introduction to Misfit, and I kind of started following in that year. Was able to keep in touch with her throughout the following season after I went back home for my last year of undergrad, and then ended up getting into grad school at MD Anderson, moving back to Houston and training with her for the full year, and just kept learning from her and the people I was surrounded with, a couple other Misfit guys, Travis Williams being one of them, and just like surrounding yourself with people who were far and away better than I was. You have to, if you want to be good, you have to elevate to at least their level, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what did you learn other than like, you know, getting up to that level? Like, do they teach you anything or any tricks to kind of help you out, like kind of succeed in the sport?
Yeah. Yeah. Mentally, like one of Alexis Johnson's favorite stories to tell is, anytime we'd work out that first summer, she would be like, dude, you talk way too much during workouts. You shouldn't have any oxygen to be able to breathe. And I was like, that's a good point. And then it was, dude, you chalk way too much. You don't need that much chalk. You're fine. Like, just, you're using it as an excuse to break. I was like, that's right. So it's like little things like that. And then Travis Williams was a guy who like uses as many tricks as he can get away with to just be faster. Whether it be like shorting your extension whenever the barbell's light, because you don't need to, you know, fully extend to like a triple extension on a power clean. Mm-hmm. If it's 95 pounds, you know, you muscle clean it and it's a fraction of a second faster, but over 20 reps, maybe it's 4 seconds faster. And that could be the difference, you know, or, you know, how to transition quickly. Instead of walking to your barbell until you got the lungs, you jog over and put your hands right on the bar. You know, so things like that, you know, even to how to squat on a light thruster, you know, keeping your feet more narrow and using like a little bit of a bounce reflex with your hamstrings on your calves and heels, as opposed to going really wide and having no kind of bounce. It's like little things like that to like save energy and increase like rep speed. Those were like little tricks that, you know, here and there that I was able to pick up on and use. But the big things are really like the mindset and like the willingness to hurt.
Yeah, and Travis and Alexis, from what I've seen in their videos, they know how to hurt. So
definitely, yeah. I mean, I've seen Travis. The dude doesn't know how to go easy on a workout. Hates workouts that are like paced out intentionally. Refuses to do them, which he probably should learn how to pace, because that dude will full send any workout regardless of the load or the range of like the time range of the workout. I've never seen him not collapse after a workout because he just makes it hurt so bad. And that's also part of why he's had success in the sport. And, Alexis, I've seen her gag during and after workouts, and like she's got asthma, which I didn't know. And I've heard her like barely like just wheezing in the middle of a workout and refuse to stop, and I'm like, I don't know how you get to that point until you learn how to get to that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like, did you see the McGregor fight in Poirier?
I did. I saw like little clips of it.
All right. Well, if you notice when McGregor actually breaks his ankle and then he sits down and Joe Rogan starts talking to him, he's like so pissed off that he still couldn't fight, and he's like just like reaming into like everyone else, and like he doesn't even feel the pain of his ankle being broken.
Yeah,
it's kind of like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then that's why someone like McGregor's the best of his sport. The pain doesn't bother them anymore because they've been in the pain. They've had that pain every day for so long. At some point you don't feel right if you're not hitting to that point anymore.
Yeah.
You feel like you should have hurt more.
Yep, totally agree. So when you went to the games as an individual, like what was the whole process, and like what were you thinking? Did you get like a little fanboy with like all like the other high level athletes, or like what was your experience?
Oh, totally, man. It's like the first time I ever went to regionals, I was looking at all the regionals athletes. I was like, how are men built like this? They're massive, they're lean, and they're just like, they're Greek gods to me.
Yeah.
And then you qualify for regionals and you're kind of like them. But then you get to games and you're like, how are men this big and this fit and running this fast and doing gymnastics like that? And like, you see all the faces you just watched on YouTube. You're like, hey, you're right there. But at the same time, you're like, you're there to compete. And so you got to reel back the giddiness sometimes, I guess, So, and then everyone's like, all those guys got their game faces on. And you're like, I don't want to talk to you. Even though I would, I don't, because you look like you'd punch me in the face,
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of that going on.
Yeah. So is there any like trash talking in the back at all, or during the workouts that you hear that like the fans don't hear?
No, I mean, between friends, like there's banter.
Yeah.
But no one's seriously like talking crap or anything back there, like calling anyone out. I've never seen anything like that go on back there.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Because I was thinking like maybe like, oh, I'm gonna smoke you in this workout or something like that, or like nothing like trash talking you see in like UFC stuff, but like just like light stuff.
Then yes there is, but again, it's between friends and between people who like compete together. But then there's all on the flip side of that, like once people are in the corral, like no one talks to each other, for the most part.
Yeah, and they're just like lazy.
So it's more of like in warm up, there'll be some banter back and forth, but once like you get called into the corrals and you got 10 minutes before you're out on the floor, I mean everyone's so nervous they're not talking.
Yeah, I hear you. So you actually, are you training now at Jump Ship?
Yes, sir.
So what made you switch from Misfit to that program?
So Seth runs Jump Ship. Him and his wife Danny. Seth used to be a large part of Misfit, and he was my individual coach whenever I qualified in 2018. And I loved working with Seth. I had a great relationship with him, and whenever he left from Misfit, I was sad about it, even though I wasn't competing when it happened. And then when I started competing again, I got into Misfit and then competed in 2019 games. And I wanted to work with Seth again because I felt like he understood me as an athlete. And I wanted that relationship that we had in 2018 again. And so it's been a great relationship. We talk all the time, even though he lives in Hawaii in a completely different time zone. There's no issue with him being able to know what I need and figure out what the next step is.
Yeah, I've seen YouTube videos of you two working together. I think it was the 2018 games or something like that. You were doing it was like with the handstand walks and stuff with the gymnastic pads and stuff like that, and you guys were talking to each other, and it just looking at the video, it looked like you guys had a great connection. So I understand why you would
Yeah.
like, jump ship and go to that one. So
Yeah. So, and yeah, Misfit's still amazing. I mean, they've got at least three guys, or two women and a guy going to the games. But it was more of like that personal connection I wanted with Seth again.
yeah, very cool. Now Danny's a huge Patriots fan, and I'm a Patriots fan as well. I'm from Massachusetts, so
Yeah.
I know she's like a uber fangirl with Tom Brady. So does she like talk about it like all the time, or?
I don't get to talk to Danny too much. The most kind of conversation, because I've never met Danny.
Okay.
I haven't been to Hawaii yet to be there, and I never met her when they were up in Maine or anything. But she gives me as much shit as Seth does, but that's about as far as our relationship goes. She just makes fun of me.
Yeah, when I saw that Tom Brady ran 1,000 yards, she actually tattooed it on herself.
No way.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, like I guess I follow her on Instagram, and she tattooed like TB12 like 1,000 or something like that underneath it, and like the TB12 were like put a comment, we're like, oh my god, I can't believe you actually tattooed that on yourself.
That's pretty awesome. I'll have to ask her about that
Yeah.
when I go down to Hawaii.
So you made it. You went to the West Coast Classic this year.
Yes, sir.
So that was your first choice.
Yeah, it was. Because it gave me the most time between quarterfinals and semis for like a couple of different reasons. I wanted that extra time. One of them being I kept dealing with injuries and kept having like back off of training and then ramp it back up, get injured, back off training, start ramping up again, get injured. So I was coming out of like a couple of like overuse injuries in the quarterfinals and needed like a solid 2 weeks of low intensity work before I ramped back up for semis. And that one gave me the most amount of time to kind of peak again.
Mm-hmm. Now, what kind of low intensity work were you doing?
C2 bike work, no running because that was what gave me the overuse injuries. Lighter lifting, slower metcons, stuff like that. No bounding or heavy lifts to kind of keep the stress down,
Mm-hmm.
but allow my cardiovascular system to keep working hard.
Very cool. So you never did the elliptical or anything like that? Go to like some Globo gym and just kind of elliptical for a little while, almost like
Not then, but 2 weeks ago, coming back from the West Coast, I was back in Louisiana with my family because I was doing a little bit of work down there, and wanted some low intensity exercise. So me and my wife went and did hot yoga.
Oh, nice. Very cool.
Yeah.
So was the whole family with you at the West Coast Classic?
My brother and sister and their spouses and children were not, but both my parents were. My wife, my in-laws, and my brother-in-law and his girlfriend came out. My brother and my sister are my brother's in ophthalmology school and my sister's in optometry school at University of Alabama, Birmingham.
Mm-hmm.
And they both. My sister was in a wedding. My brother had a baby. He had his first boy, his second child. So I got a niece and a nephew over there. He'd had their boy like a couple, maybe a week or two prior to West Coast. And so obviously they had their hands full between both of my brother, his wife, both being residents in medical school, 2 babies, and then my sister's in a wedding. So they weren't able to make it out, but given the chance, they would have been.
Very cool. Very cool. So I know one of the workouts you actually hurt your elbow.
Yep.
So how did that happen?
Yeah, it was the first event, the snatch ladder, right? The last barbell was 265. And I was feeling good in that event. I was ahead of my pace that I'd been in practice. Hit my first rep at 265, but when I caught it, my elbow like crunched weird and didn't feel good, but was able to stabilize it, stand it up. And if you there's some video, I don't know if it's on the stream or anything, but like I kind of like shook out my elbow because it hurt to do that. It was in my head going into the net, like going into the second rep because you only needed 2 to complete the workout. I just needed 1 more. Missed it twice in a row because I was just kind of scared to get under it, like fully commit.
Mm-hmm.
And then internal dialogue, went back and fully committed, got under it, and it crunched harder that time. Like a series of like pops and crunches, and it hurt pretty bad. And going back and looking at the video, it looked like I hyperextended or maybe even dislocated the elbow in the catch, and ended that event right there. Thought I was done. Thought I'd tore something in my elbow. Thought I'd just completely ruined myself for the weekend. But well, ibuprofen and adrenaline and prayer got me through the rest of the weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of ibuprofen, huh?
So I actually just got the MRI results back this morning for the elbow. It's my mom called me at like 6:30 this morning, because she knows the doctors real well back in Louisiana, where I went and got diagnosed, or went and got treated or whatever, went and got consults. She goes, "Hey, Brandon, hope I didn't wake you up." I was like, "No, I'm awake, just drinking coffee." She goes, "Your UCL is completely torn." I was like, "Oh, thanks, Mom."
Jeez. Wow.
Yeah, I got a completely torn UCL.
So how are you able to manage to do any of the work? Are you still in like pain while you're doing the workouts at all, or?
Yeah. Like at West Coast or now?
Well, like all together.
Yeah. Now at West Coast, I mean, it was event by event, but there weren't too many events where I had to use any kind of mobility or stability in my elbow, where in the warm up area, you know, I couldn't squat clean 95 pounds for thrusters because I couldn't bend my elbow to get into a front rack. I did maybe one legless rope climb that took, 10 tries. And then I had to go out and do 27, 21, 15, and 9 thrusters and 4, 3, 2, 1 legless rope climbs. Going into like the triple G chipper, where it started off with 100 pull-ups, I did 2 or 3 in a row in warm up, and that was it. Like, because I couldn't hang on a bar. The extension hurt too bad to hang on a bar. I didn't touch the 100-pound dumbbell. I was like, I did maybe 80 pounds, and it took a few tries on the left side. I was like, there's no point in doing 100. Let me see if I can do it when I get out there, And as the weekend went, into the third day, the swelling went down. So the mobility issues were less. The pain was obviously still there, but bending my elbow was better. So like the squat clean ladder was not so bad. The strict handstand push-ups felt okay enough, So you made it work, and there weren't too long of intervals that whole weekend where I wasn't praying to God for a little bit of strength to get me through the weekend.
Yeah, well, very cool. And obviously, like when that first happened, that must have been swollen up like a big balloon.
The swelling wasn't too bad.
Okay.
There was no bruising. There wasn't that much swelling. I mean, I went immediately to medical, got ice on it. And that was all they did. I was like, so I tossed the ice in the trash because didn't want it. But I just started chewing ibuprofen the rest of the weekend, and voodoo flossing, and just kind of keeping like ice, just trying to keep the pain and the swelling down. It was a little bit swollen, but it wasn't crazy.
Yeah. So what was your favorite workout during the whole West Coast Classic?
Probably the one-on-one. No, there were a lot of cool events. I was really excited about like the Rupp Run, just like that long like grinding event. And I don't consider myself a great runner, but I felt like I really executed like a pace on it and stuck with it, and was able to like finish 5th, I believe. So I was really excited about that one. And then the sandbag event, I thought it was cool to grab an event win, especially with like the field that we were competing with of just like incredible athletes.
Yeah, I love that sandbag workout. That was so cool. So that was like, especially with the females, with Danielle Brandon and Danny Speed.
Man, they're insane athletes, aren't they? Yeah. I mean, and competitors. They're just crazy.
Yeah. So what? Obviously, you had Cole Sager, Sean Sweeney. You had a bunch of
Noah Olson.
Noah Olson.
Will Morad.
Yep. You had a whole bunch of like stud athletes. What did you learn anything from like that competition by watching them? Well, obviously you really can't watch them, but like, what did you learn from them?
Not too much. I mean, like I said, like especially in something like that where the games is kind of like that end goal. And a lot of athletes go in there with like a goal of like where they want to place, whether it be winning or being top 10 or top 20. And there's So depending on the athletes at the games, there are some who are there to like kind of see what they're made of and see what they can do, but there's no hard set goal in mind. Their life doesn't rely on it. And then there's guys who are very serious about it. But at semis, I mean, everyone wants to freaking qualify, you know, and so no one's talking too much to each other. That like not really that much, especially the guys in like the top 10. We're all gunning for like those top 5 spots. But that being said, like those guys in the top of the field are incredible gentlemen, you know, super nice. And especially like after the fact, like everyone was joking around, you know, waiting for their drug test or whatever. You know, you actually get to talk to them and get to know them a little bit. And so I did end up having like a pretty long conversation with Cole Sager. The first time I ever really talked to him. I'm surprised he actually kind of knew who I was. Even Noah Olson, he said my name. He's like, "What's up, Luckett?" I was like, "Hey man, you know my name? Thanks, I appreciate that." You know. Yeah. But yeah, Cole Sager is super nice guy. The first time I ever like really got to chat with him. Smart dude, but just committed to his work and his family, and really nice guy, and said, you know, gave me some really nice words of encouragement, which meant a lot to me. And yeah, that was probably the deepest conversation I had with anyone over the weekend. Yeah. But yeah, so I didn't learn too much about like their competitive side, but as humans and men, you kind of get to see, you know, there are a lot of really nice guys.
Yeah. So when the last event was over, they were naming everybody. And I remember watching you just sitting there with your eyes closed and kind of just like waiting. And then they said your name as fifth, as you know, in 5th place, and you just still sat. You just still stood there, just closed your eyes, just like what were the emotions going through?
Man, you know, the whole time I was sitting there having a little inner dialogue. You know, like I said, I prayed a lot that weekend. I'm a religious man, and I feel like I have a good relationship with Christ, and I didn't stop praying that weekend, especially sitting there on that mat. You know, I decided to give those results up to God, whether you qualify or not. I gave those results up, but I was, you know, you obviously want it, you know, I wanted to qualify. I wanted to hear my name. And with all of the ups and downs of the weekend and not knowing if I'd be able to continue, and then, you know, climbing up into 3rd or 4th rather, and then falling down into 5th and having such a close race with Dallin Pepper and Will Morad, you know, and getting beat by Dallin Pepper in the last event and not really knowing if I'd qualified. There's a lot of anticipation going on. And so whenever I finally heard that name, it was just like it's like just a wash over my body, you know, over my soul, kind of, you know. It's just like I could breathe. Yeah. You know, I was able to do what I set out to do, despite, you know, the setbacks or the injuries or whatever it is. Yeah. And just I was grateful, you know. Like I said, the excitement's not for me. It's not there in individual competition. I didn't feel the desire to throw my hands up and smile, but I was so happy and grateful to have made it through the weekend and be able to like just achieve that goal that I really poured a lot into.
Yeah, very cool. That's so cool. I was rooting for you. Like I saw the split screen and I was like, oh, I hope Brandon wins it, you know. And then like that happened. I was like, yes, all right, nice. So cool.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, I you know, I follow Misfit, and so I've been a big Misfit fan. So I follow pretty much like everyone on Misfit, and so I was like, okay, it's nice to see, you know, another, you know, former Misfit, you know, make it. Yeah. So it's cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
well, I still love the Misfit crew, so
yeah.
You know.
Well, I'm not saying you don't. So.
Yeah.
So what are you expecting for the CrossFit Games this year? Because I know they already talked about the first 2 workouts. One's a paddle, you know, swim,
paddle swim.
What do you think about your elbow, like kind of holding on to that?
Yeah, I did a good deal of swimming. I went back to my old high school while I was in Louisiana at my parents' house. Went to a couple of swim practices and held up okay. Drowned a little bit because the practices were really hard, but the elbow held up fine swimming. the paddleboard should be okay. You know, there's a lot of things I can do safely and decently comfortably with the elbow. There's some things I can't. And so, you know, talking with Seth, it's just, I mean, it's one event at a time. There's only so much I can do about worrying about what's going to come up. And so the next 2 weeks are just figuring out where those limits are right now and figuring out how to get past them in Madison. And then whenever there are events that shouldn't be limited by a torn UCL, you know, just getting after them and trying to grab some points there if I can. So yeah, I mean, it's just I'm not too worried about the results of what's going to happen. It's really worrying about what I can do to perform as best as I'm physically capable in the moment.
Yeah. So are you ready? Are you ready for the pig?
Shoot. Never flipped a pig. You know, I flipped some tires. I've never flipped a pig. So we'll see how that goes. Functionally, I should be safe, but capability in terms of lifting that sucker, we'll see how it goes. We'll see.
I mean, you should watch like the old like CrossFit games and like kind of watch like those guys, how some people did it right and some people did it wrong.
Yeah. I do think that a taller guy has a little bit of improved leverage on it. So hopefully that plays in my favor.
Yeah. How tall are you roughly?
I'm a little over 6 foot.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I'm a big fan of the tall athletes because I'm 6'6". So.
Yeah. Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So like a lot of like the gymnastic movements are a real pain in my ass. So.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm not as tall as, you know, Pikowski or Paulson or, you know, Matt DeLugos or any of those guys. Those guys are giants. Yeah. But I'm a taller guy, I guess.
Yeah. So I actually saw you on Instagram that you actually were training with Sean Sweeney and a couple other dudes. So what were the workouts were you doing and like what made you guys like kind of get together?
Yeah. So Sean Sweeney, Tim Paulson, Scott Tetlow, and Cody Anderson, and myself are part of like the 10,000 crew that they sponsored through like, you know, the CrossFit realm. They're involved in like so many different other modalities of like fitness and whatnot, but we're the CrossFit crew. And so they flew us out to Colorado to do a training camp. Tim Paulson headed the programming and decided the workouts. And we kind of went through like a really grueling weekend of training from, you know, starting off with a 7.5 mile trail run up in Denver, you know, with a little over 1,000 feet of gain, into, you know, one of our workouts was 5 rounds of 7 muscle ups, 11 front squats at 205, some lifting work, which is snatches. I couldn't participate in that part. So I snatched 135 on the side while they were throwing up 265. And I felt like, but it was what I could do. And it was good work for me because I was excited about just putting some over my head. We did a workout of row by death calories, where you minute on, minute off, starting at 20 calories and adding a calorie every interval. That was nasty. You know, workouts of strict handstand push-ups, dumbbell box step overs and double unders, into assault bike, lunging and handstand walking. And we finished off one of our days with another. There's some workouts that stood out to me as like just being really brutal. That muscle up front squat workout absolutely took my heart and soul away from me and didn't give it back.
Yeah.
I was so sick after that. Like sorry.
No, you're good.
Someone be trying to call me. Had to decline. That workout like left me on the floor for a solid hour, and everyone else like got up and like walked around. I was like, I hate you guys, you know. But that's like a bane of my existence of heavy front squats, you know. And then that row by death by row calories left other people on the floors. Then the programming ended up being really well constructed, where it hit some people's weaknesses and some people's strengths. You know, Scott Tetlow won like 2 or 3 workouts. Tim Paulson won 2 or 3 workouts. I won 2 workouts. And so like it wasn't like Tim Paulson wrote the workout, like the programming, so that he would crush all of us the whole time. And it wasn't all gymnastics, so that, you know, it was really well run or really well thought out. And we were all barely able to like walk the entire time. Like my legs are still so sore.
Yeah.
But it's good preparation mentally and physically for what we're going to be doing in Madison. So it was a great time.
Very cool. So how did you get involved with 10,000?
Jared Stein, who runs part of like their athlete, or yeah, they're like athlete relations or what have you. And Brian Levine kind of reached out to me like, hey, we want to get on a chat with you. Just talked to them. They said, we think you might be a good fit for us. If you like our gear, we'd love to start working with you and get you involved in getting you known in the 10,000 community, but also getting 10,000 known in the CrossFit community. They do like every month they do a work event. They call it a work event. It's like an open style workout, and it's open to anyone. And there's money and gear up for grabs. Anyone can do it, man or woman. Even though they only do men gear, women can still win cash. And it's once a month. And so I started, they want us to participate in that and kind of promote that. It's a really cool thing because people from Europe and Asia and Australia and South America, like all over the world are doing it. So it's a really cool thing to do like throughout the year and like kind of keep the community rolling, and not just have the open and regionals and games. So, but yeah, that's where the relationship started, and it's a great group of fellas over there.
Yeah. So what makes you stay with the shorts? Like why are those shorts like the best ones that you like?
So, I mean, there's a lot of great shorts out there. But I mean, the ones from 10,000, for what we do in the sport, we do everything. So you want a short that does everything. And I fell in love with like the fit and feel, like the aesthetics of them, like how they look on me, or other men. They look good. They're not kind of show off a little bit of the quad. They're not too baggy. They're they just look good on you. And I like to look good, look good, feel good.
Yeah.
And the quality of the material is great. And so they have two pairs of shorts that I really love. Their interval short is like their HIIT training or like CrossFit training short. That's like super versatile. But then they also got like their foundation short, which was the first model they ever made, which is more of like a board short. So it's got like a thicker waistband, a drawstring in the front, like kind of like a swimsuit might have. And kind of styled after a board short, but it's thicker. It's like a little thicker material, and I love those shorts. Like they're awesome because they feel rugged. I wouldn't wear them on like a 5K run or farther, like during the summer especially, but like for the lifting and like all the dirty crap we do, to our bodies, just dragging our bodies around through the dirt, and they just feel like they're just going to hold up,
Yeah, very cool. So what do you think about Noble and the CrossFit Games together?
I'm excited to see where that goes. I think it's cool that Noble is such like a fitness community based company, especially like, I mean, when I say fitness community, I really mean CrossFit. They started off in CrossFit, and that's who they cater to. So I think that's going to be cool. I think at some point the community is going to start wanting a different, progression of the shoe. It's been the same shoe in different colors for, since they've been created.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's room for improvements there or not. But as far as them being a company for the CrossFit community, I think they're great. Their gears, as far as I know, is good. I've never messed with much of their clothing or anything. I've worn their shoes before a while back. But they make great quality gear because that's why people like them. It looks good and it's functional and it stands up. So
yeah. So are they making you wear their shoes, or are you able to wear your own?
it's a good question. They'll be giving us shoes. I don't know what the requirements are. Back whenever Reebok was running in 2018 and before 2018, couldn't wear anything but Reebok shoes, socks, underwear, shirts. You literally couldn't wear non-Reebok underwear. And not only non-Reebok underwear, it had to be the underwear they gave you at the games. So even if you had Reebok underwear before that, you couldn't wear them. So they were super strict whenever I was there. And then the next year, they're like, yeah, you can wear Nike shoes if you want, but everything else had to be Reebok, I think. So I don't know what the deal will be this year. Like if you can wear Nikes or Reeboks instead of Nanos, but everything else has to be Reebok or what. we have the uniform, so I know the clothing will be noble. It'll be like our uniforms. You can't wear whatever shirt or short you want to wear.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't really know how strict they'll be. They haven't given us any information about that yet.
Yeah. Now I heard your name is going to be on the bottom of the foot of the shoe of one of the nobles.
I don't think it'll be my name. I think there's like the noble athletes' names, like Brooke Wells and Tia.
I thought everyone was going to get their names on the shoe.
I don't think. I wasn't aware of that.
Oh, okay. I might be wrong, so I don't know.
If they do, I'm going to get my name, and I'll be like Andy from Toy Story with my name on the bottom of the shoe.
Very cool, very cool. So we're getting close to the end, but I do want to talk about, yeah, you're married. So how long have you been married?
Yes, sir. Well, we got married. My wife and I, Kristen, got married on November 21st of 2020. So 8 months, roughly, I guess.
Yeah.
But I've known Kristen for a little over 8 years. We started dating in high school. Met her before my senior year of high school, and she's been my best buddy ever since. And so the only thing left to do is put a ring on her finger and tell her to marry me.
Yeah. Yep. So have you gotten the questions of like, when are you having kids, or any of those type of
questions? Dude, every day from my dad and mom. They're like, is Kristen pregnant yet? I'm like, dude, slow your roll, man. I got a few things to take care of before the babies start coming. But no, I mean, we'll give it a couple years. I would definitely like to start having some people be calling me. Sorry. I definitely like to start our family, growing our family before I turn 30, maybe, just as a number in mind. But ultimately, that's going to be a group decision between Kristen and I. But I think we're settled on 3 kids, maybe 4 kids. So.
God bless you. I have 2, and that's good enough. So.
Her parents had 2. My parents had 3. My parents wish they had more. Hers are like 2's good, So it's, we'll leave the rest of that up to the powers that be,
Yeah. So I originally wanted like 5 kids, because I had I'm a family of 4 kids. And I'm like, oh, 5 would be great. And then like the first one happened. I had my first child. And then I'm like, all right, I'm pretty cool with 1. But then we had another one, and I'm like, okay, no more. I just can't. I can't do it anymore.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, everyone says like they want this amount of kids, and then all of a sudden like they realize, I'm like, okay, it's a lot harder than they think.
Yeah.
So I mean,
and it's the funny balance of my marriage is I'm a pretty emotional dude. My wife's like pretty logical. Like she's an accountant, so she's a numbers person. Sometimes you wonder if she's got emotions, but she does, at least for me. And so she's like, if we have 2 and we're in over our heads, I'm like, 3's gonna be great, So it will take a one at a time for sure, but fingers crossed. I want the 3.
Yeah, I mean, then you're gonna be outnumbered, and then game over. So
that's what her mom says. She's like, once they start outnumbering you, it's game over.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's what we have you for. You got to come be our +1 and help us out.
Yeah. I know it's further out, but like, do you have like an age gap that you're looking to do or have or anything like that, or?
No. Probably fairly close. I mean, obviously, if we start having kids at 29 and we want 3, there's that window, maybe before being done at 35, so space them out by 1 or 2 years, 1.5 to 2.5 years.
Very cool.
So
yeah, awesome. So I have a couple questions. So for like the last part, so if you stopped CrossFit or anything, how do you want people to know you as?
I just want to be a good man. More than anything, whether I have goals of growing my dad's business or competing in the CrossFit Games or, whatever it is, I just want to be a good person. I think that's the ultimate goal for anyone. I would hate to be a success and be a jerk or be someone who people didn't like to be around or want to come see or visit or whatever it is. And, or not be a good husband to my wife and, her be lonely because I'm not being a good guy, or my dad or mom to be disappointed in me because I'm not a good person. But I just want to be a good man.
Very cool. Awesome. So what are your goals for the rest of the year? Obviously, like, with the CrossFit Games, there's also going to be personal ones. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what are those for you?
Yeah. As soon as I'm done with the CrossFit Games, people say I might be retiring, which originally I thought I would be, but I kind of got my body and mind on a track that feels good for this elbow, obviously. But I was burnt out last year, ready to be done a little bit, especially mentally. But I've gotten a ball rolling in a direction that I feel good about. So I'll be taking next year off to really focus on the business that I'll be buying into with my dad. Really trying to make him proud and do a good job, and not slack and not have external focus of trying to be a competitive athlete that might be detrimental or hinder my performance there. So that's definitely a goal. Just my wife and I will be closing on 21 acres in Louisiana of
nice.
land. So I want to pay that off in the next 3 years. Just completely wash out that debt, not have it. And then, give my time to family for a year. And then I think in 2022, we'll try to come back and see what we can do competitively again.
Very cool. Awesome. So do you have a favorite book you like to read?
I've got a few. I've been reading The Art of War. Very hard to read, but I just want to be able to say I read it. Let me see. I read a lot of books on investing. There is one, but those aren't great books. There was one book that I really love, and it's called. Now that I had it on the tip of my tongue and now it's gone.
Yeah, figures.
Gosh, it's The Formula. I think it's called The Formula, and it's the math. It's like the mathematical and data-based like ideas behind success. I was given it by the director of my master's program as a gift. It's called The Formula. And the whole book is about what it takes to be successful. Part of that is how you define success. Is it a dollar value? Is it how many people know you? Is it fame? Or is it happiness? And this guy did data-driven research to figure out how to achieve that. And it was a good outlook because part of that formula is simply determination and desire. So that continued desire to be a successful person, however you define it, is a large part of that formula. And so that was a good book for me to read at a young age.
Very cool. I gotta read that. I gotta write that down. So The Formula. Okay, very cool.
If I had it, I would go grab it and tell you the author and everything, but it's been passed on to other people that I don't know where it is now.
Yeah. I'll get it off of Amazon or something like that, or Barnes and Noble.
Yeah.
So, okay, cool. So, what would you tell somebody that's trying to get into the CrossFit Games, like what to expect throughout their whole process of getting there?
Mm-hmm. The formula. It takes a lot of desire and continued determination. Part of that formula was, regardless of where you went to college, if you simply applied to an Ivy League school because you simply wanted to be successful, your chances of beating the median household income and being successful was increased like threefold. Just because it didn't matter that you were smart enough to get into the Ivy League school. It simply mattered that you wanted to be there. Mm-hmm. And so if someone's getting into CrossFit and you want to be competitive, you have to hold on to that desire. It starts really small. It starts by just applying or whatever it might be, and then sticking to it. Whether you get denied or whether you don't hit those goals by November 1st or January 1st or whatever your date you had in mind was. If you still want to do it, you keep chipping away, keep that determination at the forefront. So
very cool. Well, thank you very much for, taking the time to, hear your experience and, get all the phone calls and, taking the time out just to talk to me. So thank you very much for doing this.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you, Thomas. And I thank you for letting me come on your podcast.
All right. Have a good one.
Yes, sir. You too.